Hello and welcome to Opinion Roundup. I'm Associate Editor of the Moscow Times, Christopher Brennan, here with Opinion Editor of the Moscow Times, Michael Bohm, here to discuss the ongoing crisis in Ukraine and the Crimea region, as well as Mike's latest article, Putin's Historical Injustice. So Mike, in your last piece that we featured on our last podcast, and in this piece, you focus a lot on Putin's historical legacy and his interest in it. You reference Catherine the Great, you reference Khrushchev, you reference even Adolf Hitler in this piece. In the grand scheme of things, in Russia's annexation of Crimea, do you think it more as a move of Putin's historical legacy about the restoration of the Soviet Union, or as more of a domestic move for specifically targeted at 2014?
2014?
The year we currently live in.
Right. I think it's both. To say that restoring the Soviet Empire is a bit of a stretch. I mean, there's certain irony in my title. One small peninsula doesn't restore the Soviet Empire. It depends how far he's going to go from here. That's the real question. If the next step is eastern parts of Ukraine, that's more of the Soviet Empire. But clearly he wants a legacy, and this was part of the legacy. He's returned what Catherine the Great acquired. Historic, sacred Russian land. It's very popular with the Russians. So he kills two birds with one stone. Two really big birds, and it's his legacy, and it's incredibly popular. There's very few Russians that don't support. It doesn't matter. The ends justify the means. Of course, Russians know that it was done in a blitzkrieg. It was done not so legally, but who cares? It was done.
A lot of people are kind of pointing to this as standing up to the West, doing something that Western countries, perhaps the United States, is thought of to have done in Iraq and the Iraq War. But, I mean, going forward from here, everyone's interested in what happens in eastern Ukraine. I mean, the differentiation between Putin as kind of this rational actor thinking about domestic politics as well, and as someone who, as Merkel said, kind of lost touch with reality, has a lot to say with what happens in terms of whether there are possibly Russian troops going over the Ukrainian border.
Right.
What do you see happening from here?
I think in the end, I mean, that's why all the analogies with Hitler don't work. I mean, Putin is clearly not Hitler. I mean, there's certain historical analogies with annexation and with some of the reasons, some of the pretexts, but clearly he's not Hitler in the sense of psychologically. He's not going. I think he knows where to stop, and that's I think he knows that he'll pretty much get away with Crimea. If he goes further, it'll be, we're not talking sanctions, we're talking, potentially NATO involvement. So he's a very good chess player, and I think he played this particular move excellently, but I think he knows where to stop.
So in terms of people kind of supporting Crimea as well, I mean, many Russian friends I have think of Crimea as still part of Russia. Do you view kind of this move as, what does it spring from in terms of the support? I mean, a lot of people alive today were born in the Soviet Union, kind of experienced this idea of the Soviet Union as a world power. Right. Is that where you think this kind of support comes from, or do you think it's more of a 21st century?
I think the support comes from a very basic mistake that they see. I mean, it only became Ukrainian territory in 1954 by a mistake, by an internal administrative move by Khrushchev. So most Russians are against the entire word annexation. Annexation implies a forceful seizing of something that's not yours. For Russians, it's returning what is rightfully Russian. So,
I mean, RT, the state-run English news channel of the Kremlin, has used the word reunification. And I mean, people make passing references to different analogies, whether it's South Ossetia or the Sudetenland. What do you think is the best historical analogy if we're talking about this moment in terms of history for Crimea?
I mean, I think the Austrian annexation has some validity, only because Russia signed an agreement. I mean, if in 1994 to respect Ukrainians' borders within the current framework, which means including Crimea. If Putin is set on redefining these agreements and calling in the name of correcting historical injustices, it opens up a huge Pandora's box. I mean, who's next? The borders have changed so many times through wars and through revolution. The only way to solve solve these problems is by agreements, which Russians signed in 1994. If that is being relooked in terms of correcting historical injustice, what's the next one? Poland is going to say, well, Lvov is ours. Germany is going to say Kaliningrad is ours.
Do you see kind of this idea of ethnic disputes and just taking land?
No, I don't see it happening. I'm just saying that is the inherent danger in redrawing borders. That's why it opens up a Pandora's box. That's why the world is up in arms. Because you can't just say, okay, well, Yanukovych left, we'll take advantage, we'll do a blitzkrieg, we'll take advantage of the vacuum of power, and we'll grab what we consider as ours. That's not the way the world order works. There's the UN, which Russia supposedly respects as the only organ that can, institution that can approve of foreign intervention. And that's the way if any country can say, well, we feel that it's a historical injustice and we're going to do whatever we want, then the whole foundation, the post-World War II foundation of global stability and security doesn't work.
I suppose we'll see how the way the world works changes in the coming days and the coming weeks. And we'll see you next time on Opinion Roundup.
Thank you.